allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time I'll call the regular meeting of October 25. Public forum comment? No public forum. Do we have approval, or do we have any additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda? We have an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Ms. Lance?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Stepp?
Aye.
Mayor Pierce?
Aye. Move on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion we approve the amendments as reported.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Ms. Lance?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Stepp?
Aye.
Mayor Pierce?
Aye. Regarding proclamations and announcements, no proclamations, but we do need to make an announcement regarding the Herington Fall Festival. That is Saturday, October 25th, this coming one. Sunday if it rains, right? It starts at what time?
Doesn't look like it's going to rain. It looks like rain or shine for this. Starting at 9 a.m., I believe.
Okay. And this is mostly downtown, and roadway is blocked from, what is that, Day Street, or one more south?
As well, it has to be blocked because they're having the farmer's market there.
Right.
So probably at least Walnut to, what's the next one over, McLaren?
Yeah, it could.
Yeah.
It'd be from McLaren to all the way to Main Street, right?
I believe that's correct, yep.
And it'll be for a majority of the day.
And it does start at 9 a.m. and ends after dark.
You talking Day Street or McLaren?
From Broadway from McLaren to Main.
Okay.
And then I believe the 10 block of West Walnut between Broadway and First Street. Is that correct?
Where the farmer's market is.
Okay. So hopefully everybody plans for alternate routes if they travel through there. Move on to the next agenda items. Consider a road maintenance agreement with Lyon Township. Mr. Ramadi.
So, Commissioners, Lyon Township reached out to us about the maintenance of the Lake Road historically around that area. The city has purchased the rock, and either the township or the county have come in and spread the rock for us and leveled the road out. They have a little bit better equipment than we do, and they have a big road grader. So historically they've done that. They just asked us to put that agreement in writing for the future. So we put a few clauses in there that just referenced the maintenance that they'll conduct. We'll buy the rock or sand or kind of whatever materials we need for them to go in and spread it. And Lyon Township was able to review this, and the only correction from your original packet was removing Rain Road that was originally in that agreement, as that's still maintained by the county. But the remaining roads will be, we'll partner with Lyon Township on that, and then we put a clause in here if there's any major construction that we'll consider going out for bids, and beyond the internal city staff spending limit, we'll bring any of those items to the city commission in the future. So pretty simple, but just gives us something that we can base it off of. So it's a good partnership that we have. It works out well, and I would recommend we move forward with it. So
Questions or comments?
Is that something you have to sign?
Yeah.
Brad, is this normal contract?
I move that we approve said maintenance agreement with Lyon Township and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Ms. Lawrence?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Stepp?
Aye.
Mayor Pierce?
Aye. Discussion on the current state of the Herington Housing Authority. Mr. Motti?
Commissioners, so we're following up. We've been making an effort to start the Housing Authority up again. I believe the last regular meeting of the full body was back in March of 2024. So we've been a little over a year without a Housing Authority, and want to thank Rhonda Rice, who we appointed to the Housing Authority last year. She's kind of led the charge on reinvigorating this effort and identifying some potential board members in addition to the ones we already have, and has kind of been going back and researching on documentation of how the city's tied to the Housing Authority and what responsibilities we have as a city staff, a commission, and a Housing Authority board. So she's still doing some research on that, and we may have more to come down the road. But I know Brad's looked into this a little bit as far as how we want to move forward. But we wanted to just bring it before the commission as a discussion item, because we've struggled to keep Housing Authority board members over the years, and it's been difficult to keep that board engaged. It's a stressful job, but it's an important one to continue to provide affordable housing opportunities for folks in Herington. So the way I understand it is, the Housing Authority is directly over the Golden Age apartments, and we believe we're in a long-term lease agreement and management contract with another company on Herington Heights, so we don't have as much direct oversight over that property. It's mainly Golden Age that we're considering, but I think as it stands, the key is to get a board formed and get some regular, consistent meetings going on, and move on from there. I know one of the questions that I believe Brad was going to look into is we did briefly appoint myself as the city manager onto the board last year. So if we wanted to keep that appointment, we have 2 other board members in addition to that for a total of 3. So I believe we just need 2 more board members to have a full board, and we can begin to meet and get regular meetings on the books, and hopefully come back to the commission and provide a few more frequent updates, whether that's quarterly or whenever we want to do it, along with approving the meeting minutes for the Housing Authority and our regular consent agenda on a monthly basis. So just to provide some more transparency, and I believe to keep both complexes in compliance with HUD, they need essentially a functional board. So it's really pretty critical that we get this going again. But at this time, I'll open it up if the commission has any questions for Brad on the matter.
Brad, what's the legality and liability of the city if there's not a functioning board?
Well, basically, we're not in compliance generally with the agreement that was created many years ago with HUD, and also will house it to some extent. And so the general requirement is that we have some kind of a management board or an oversight board in place. You can go for a period of time without necessarily coming completely out of compliance and having them call in. And I've not had one composed where HUD came in and said, we need to take control of this thing because a lot of the funding that started it, if you'll recall, generally comes from those agencies federally when it all began. So they have a standing interest in them being maintained. They don't look over your shoulder very often, but periodically they may make a standard request for audits, or at least an audit of the entity from within the last 5 years or even a year, and they make that of the board. They also, as part of that audit, look to see if general compliance issues are being met. One of the primary ones is that there's an active meeting board, so we really should get that in place.
How many are a full board? 5?
It's 5, is it not at a minimum? You have some flexibility in those original founding documents, if I remember correctly, but it's not formally anointed, it's going to be more than that. Standard boards of this kind of an entity in the various cities are 5 to 7. If I recall, I may have one that has 9, but it's to be unwieldy, plus you have to find enough people who are willing to participate, meet regularly, be involved, and so work a little bit better with fewer.
And all the appointments of this board, like any other board, is appointed through the same process from the city. is there a financial liability if the board is not operating for the city?
Potentially, if it were ever found that the housing authority is out of compliance in some fashion, there are any number of ways that can occur, including they are, in essence, I had one that was near bankruptcy. I mean, they just didn't get the requisite funding in place, didn't maintain the revenue stream from tenants, even limited as it may be, and were getting it, and they got themselves to a point where they for example, had a pilot of payment in lieu to the city, because they're a tax exempt entity, but they use a significant amount of services, particularly emergency medical. If you get to a point where you're not able to meet your obligations in some way, shape, or form, including utilities and all of that, they can come in, say we're going to shut it down, and if there's any outstanding indebtedness, sometimes they will come in with and get some encumbrances in place for improvements to these. Most of that does come from, the different agencies that help form them like that. But they are also in a position at times where they can take out a loan. And those kinds of things would fall back on the founding entity to a limited degree. Most of it is not ours. I don't want to give the impression that, oh God, dollar for dollar, everything that's out there that we would have liability for. But we're not without some liability.
What?
Go ahead.
Let me think about how to say it. You had something you were going to say.
Who are the other two currently serving?
So Brandy Sinsmeyer's on the board, and then Rhonda Rice, and then, there's the matter of, we made my appointment, I believe, last year to the board as well. So, Brad, did you want to say anything about that?
There isn't, besides you're asking about it, I didn't find anything initially that would preclude, a city official from serving in that capacity. We don't want to get to the point where you had like three or more of the current governing body on it in any way, shape, or form. But having a city manager or another staff person serve in that role, but at the very least, usually one of them serves as an appointed liaison, attends the meetings, provides additional updates, can provide input, serve as a intermediary between this body and that board. But in terms of serving in that role, which we appointed that to do, I don't think there's anything that precludes that from continuing.
Okay. Anything else? One more quick question, Brad. The Board of Commissioners for the Housing Authority, we understand that they have authority over, is it Golden Age? Direct authority.
Yes.
And then they have kind of a quasi-authority over the management contract.
That gets a little murky. I've talked to, this is a long time ago when it was originally, we were looking at how that was going to get done because they were looking at purchasing at one point of any or all of the facilities, since they had thought they had met all the obligations related to the longstanding agreement that formed the origins of it, and had to have it in place for a certain period of time, all of those things, and then could consider divesting yourself of all or a portion of the property. They also wanted a management entity, and they do have that ability to develop an agency relationship with someone to serve as we're going to collect the rents, we're going to go ahead and do the typical infrastructure management maintenance, all of those sorts of things, because the board didn't feel, as I recall, at that time, that they were necessarily in the best position to do all those things, and felt like it might be useful to use a professional entity who goes around, by the way, as I remember them, and does that in different settings. So it isn't something, it wasn't a case of first impression for them.
Okay. Well, I think it's important that the board remain and it not become another hat that the sitting commissioners would have to wear. So, is there any objection for the board remaining, or do we need to make further discussion on the remaining, or of it staying?
Maintenance fine.
Okay.
And I don't know if we need to, I think we pretty much already covered 9 and 10, and I think as we have the first few meetings with the board, we'll determine when to start providing those updates. We'd probably start in January after we've had a chance to meet once or twice and digest everything, and then either have the full board attend for that first meeting, or they might send the president or a representative of the board to kind of present any updates to the city commission, and I'll probably just keep that on a rotating basis for quarterly, basically, unless, or as needed, I guess I would say. So
With that, though, I would like to, after that board has approved their minutes from the last meeting, I would like to have those immediately transmitted to the commission at the next regular meeting.
yeah, we'll get that on the cycle for the consent agenda, so it's just a part of our regular adoption. We've been trying to do that with the library board and planning commission when we can, so we'll just add that in as well.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns regarding item 9 and 10?
Negative.
There are some names that I would like to put forward to consideration, and I'd like to do this on an individual basis. I'm going to make a motion, and somebody's going to have to correct me on a term to expire on this one. Do we have those available? The open terms to expire? Okay. I'll make a motion that we appoint Isabel Martinez in the next available term to expire to the Herington Housing Authority Board.
No second.
So motion and a second. Is there discussion on that motion? Ms. Lorenz?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Staff?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Again, I'll make a motion that we appoint Patty Evans to the Herington Housing Authority Board at the next available term to expire.
No second.
A motion and a second. Is there discussion on that motion? Ms. Lorenz?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Staff?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. And at this time, I'm not going to put forward any more names for consideration to the board. So we'll move on to agenda item 12. To consider KDOT Title 6 updated plan 2025 for the Herington Public Transportation Program.
So this is kind of just a receive and file of, I believe we're kind of just obligated to make sure we're in compliance with Title VI as part of the busing program that we operate through the Hilltop complex. So I don't know if there's anything to sign. I believe the director executes everything. We're just kind of approving that at the level of the commission is the way I understand.
This only relates to the busing operations, right?
Correct, yes. To the public transportation, the busing. I think we just need a simple motion to consider the updated Kansas Department of Transportation Title VI updated plan.
So moved.
No second.
So motion and a second. Is there, and this is for staff's signature, right?
Yeah, you can just authorize staff to execute.
Any other discussion? Ms. Lorenz?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Staff?
Aye.
Mayor Garrett?
Aye. Well, we've got about 45 minutes before we have a public hearing.
Am I
Agenda.
working off I'm sorry to interrupt. Am I working off an old agenda? Did we take off 13?
No, we still have, we're going to have a discussion on
Yeah,
the lake and reservoir projects, so
That's what I'm getting at.
we'll go through some of this and then maybe go ahead and move on to city manager and commission comments if we have time, and then if we need to recess for a few minutes before we can reconvene about 6:50 or 6:55, and I'll provide a little context before we kick off the public hearing. So if we want to go ahead and move on to item 13, we sure can.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're fine. I'll let you take it away, Mr. Monty.
Yeah, so I just, I said we were maybe going to come back and discuss the lake and the reservoir, and as we know, we recently received some funding, which we'd like to keep at the lake and work on some improvements for out there. We are obligated to a few things like minor fencing project, and I believe that's initially about it, but we just kind of wanted to lay out a plan for how we wanted those dollars to be used. I think a good idea would be to kind of start to budget those funds in a manner where, we're not immediately spending them all, but we're being conscious of trying to evaluate a 2 to 3 year plan to spend those dollars. I think when you get into leaving it in your, your capital improvement plan or a part of your budget for 5 or 10 years, commissions change, staff changes, and you tend to forget about it. So I think having a plan of how we want to use some of these dollars initially is a good idea. So I'll just start off kind of going one by one. We're still working on potential designs for campsites at the old lake, and that will include some potentially some work to the electrical pedestals. Now, on the pedestals and the wiring and some of the work it'll take, I mean, you might be able to justify spending that out of the budget for the electric fund, since we do charge a fee for the electric, so that could save you the opportunity of not having to spend some of this lake money we've received on that, and potentially save you a little bit of money. And beyond that, beyond some loads of rock or a little bit of dirt or some signage, I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of cost. I think what we're going to bring back to the City Commission in the next month or two is just kind of how we want to design these campsites that are friendly to the people that like our existing style of camping, but provide a little bit more structure for staff to designate camping areas, ensuring that we don't have 3 campers hooked up to a single pedestal, because that's when we run into breakers blowing and electrical issues, and we're out there on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon having to deal with those issues. So that's the idea of modernizing the pedestals for bigger campers, and the idea of kind of dividing the campsites up a little bit better is you don't have too many people hooking up to one pedestal. And I think the idea will be to add some additional pedestals, so we're avoiding that and not having as many breaker issues and so on and so forth. So, if there's any ideas on that, but I just wanted to fill you in on an update there. So
Before you go on, I'm curious, and maybe staff can research this and bring it back to the commission, but how much have we collected as far as rent or campsites, utilities that are at those campsites in the past year? So if we can research that so we know how much we are receiving, I think that could also help inform us a little bit more on some management of the lake. And in addition to that, the campsites, I agree, they've got to be split up from the pedestals, and they've got to also be straightened out. So is there a way that we can also identify whether or not the sites have to be leveled, or how much we have to bring in to level them and whatnot as we start planning those campsites?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different arguments. I mean, you could argue for straight campsites. You could, there's been the discussion in the past of a couple options for like a pull-through campsite for bigger RVs. So I think we're going to work on a few different design plans and bring it before the commission. It's kind of like what Cody was saying as far as like what's truly level. I mean, we can try to level you out a little bit, but ultimately, the slope can be a lot bigger than you think it's going to be. And then if you're building a pad up, you got to think about drainage and everything else. So we'll do what we can, but I think the initial phase is going to be kind of what do we want that design to look like? How many campsites do we want to fit in a designated area? Do we want to make a couple bigger campsites? Will we lose spots? Will we gain spots? I don't know if we're quite there yet, and we've been working on the fill station project, so now we can kind of pivot to maybe some rough designs of what we want to do for those individual campsites. So I would anticipate to bring that back in the next month or two, and then we can kind of make a determination on what we want to do, try to get this knocked out before the next lake season. So
Thank you.
How many current postals are out there?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I want to say like 10 to 12, but I'll have to get you an answer on that.
There might be more than that, but yeah, at least at the old lake.
Yeah. I'll get you a formal answer on that. Yeah. As far as the fill station, we've been identifying options for how we want to operate that, and I think the issue with just putting a hydrant in is and kind of having free unfettered access is that there's the risk of somebody leaving it on and us not catching it, or people obviously going out and filling tankers up or whatever with it if we can't catch them in the middle of the night. So we're kind of looking at options for a paid fill station. I would suggest that it's a pretty nominal fee. I don't think we want to charge a lot. The idea is to provide a benefit, but something that allows us to provide folks a certain amount of gallons that they pay for, and then the water shuts off and they'd have to pay again. So we're evaluating options. There's options for kind of machines that take coins, cash, and card, or just card. I think if we can get card out there in this modern era, that's probably going to be the most accessible for people. So we're kind of debating on a card reader. Or, if you have cash and coin, you almost got to have a coin dispenser or whatever out there as well, so it kind of turns into a headache. So we may just be considering a card reader, but Cody's getting bids on that, and we're kind of going to evaluate what our best options are there. So
Do you guys care if it's free or if it's paid, or?
I don't mind if it's free. I don't know what they're doing now, but I completely agree in the fact you don't want to leave it unmanned and have somebody go crank the water on and the city lose thousands of gallons of potable water to the ground. So
that's kind of really the issue, is with it being totally free, is just not having a good way for an automatic shut off. So even if you're charging 5 or 10 cents a gallon, a pretty nominal fee, I would think. It's just more that accountability, so it shuts off automatically, particularly when it's not always being supervised. So it's kind of just the idea there. So there's a shut-off period, and if we want to charge a little less than we sell bulk water for, I think that's totally fine. But either way, it's not going to be I don't think more than a few dollars to fill up your camper for a whole weekend. So we're recouping a little bit of those costs, but it's ultimately going to be pretty nominal. So,
if I may,
sure.
If we jump forward to item F, it says consideration of bathroom structure and our storefront for camp host, and I'm just wondering, I don't know where we are, if that's just an idea, but it'd be nice to be able to tie that location into said water dispensary.
So
again, I know that's probably funding driven.
So we're pretty much set up to, where we've ran the water line. If we wanted to bore underneath the road there, we could pretty easily and tie water in over the camp host area. I mean, that was part of the idea with the fill station, is ultimately, if we ever wanted to connect that area or, the rest of the lake kind of onto that water source, we could. But yeah, I think the idea is we have $200,000 here, and there's some small projects we want to do, but do we want to designate any amount of this as a grant match, at least for staff to go out and do the research and work with some of our grant writers on identifying what's out there. I don't know if it would if this type of thing would qualify for CDBG, but there's got to be some grant sources out there for us to maybe if we had a good grant match, anywhere from, I would say, $25,000 to $50,000, just kind of as a starting point to say what's out there, what can we go get. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. I think having like a shower station, bathrooms, kind of like you see at all the lakes around us, would really drive up, tourism and popularity and use of our lake. I think while you were building a structure, if you wanted to think about some sort of a storefront out there that was, that you could lease out to somebody that, for an affordable amount, but that would be providing a service or open at least during the summer months, whether that's for a bait shop or random supplies or whatever you wanted to do to kind of just have another added benefit out there. That's a part of it. You could always peel out of the project and say, well, we can't really afford that. Let's just stick with the shower house / bathroom structure. But I think that's really one of the big items we're missing at our lake. And I think it would be a good opportunity now that we have some extra funding to try to get creative and try to do something unique. I believe shower houses were referenced in our lake master plan, so you'd be chipping away at something in there. So that's kind of what the idea I wanted to get from the city commission on kind of where we stood on thinking bigger like that.
You bring up the massive amount of money that the previous commissions have spent on a lake master plan, and that is one of the items that are included. However, another item that's included is public-private partnerships and a way to seek those out. That a storefront / bait shop or house, whatever, would be a good candidate for a public-private partnership, and maybe we could take a little bit and match some of the funding if they wanted to build it and operate it. My concern with having a storefront and a bait shop is how do we then man it? Are we hiring another city staff person to take care of that on a full-time basis? Are we contracting it out to another entity? So I'm more encouraging to find somebody that would want to open the bait shop, and maybe we provide that plot for them.
And you could do that as well. I think just the idea of putting up a bait shop by itself, obviously you're going to have to figure out like water and sewer for that as well if somebody's going to be in there full time, which for a shower station we're going to have to figure out water and sewer as well. Mm-hmm. So sure, we could explore a public-private partnership. I wasn't envisioning it being staffed by a person for the city. I was more envisioning of, if you wanted to build a small storefront or something, I know that's been thought of in the past, and just like allowing someone to lease it out. It could be a tougher thing. It could be somebody that is only able to do it 6 months out of the year or whatever. So I don't know. It's just an option. You could certainly put a set of designs together with it or without it, or include in your design a little extra room on that camp host spot for either one of those things. So I think it's more of just a matter of taking the initiative to get the water and sewer figured out, because that's going to be probably one of the more difficult parts of whether you have to put an in-ground tank in, or you can try to partner on use of a lagoon nearby, or whatever you're going to have to do. So, but I think even if you said, let's look at a shower station structure, if I go out and see what grants are available, I kind of just need an idea of where we're at on, what amount of money would we want to earmark for that? Because we may get out there and figure out there's no grants, and it cost, the project cost will be $150,000, and that may be more than we want to bite off. But if we have $25,000 or up to $50,000 or something to match towards this, I think it would open up the field a little bit of what grants are out there. Like I said, I'm checking on if something like this would apply in CDBG, or that's really the main thing we would consider, where I know a match would be required of some sort. So haven't done a lot of research on it. It's kind of a pie in the sky idea at this point, but I think while we have a little bit of this money on hand, I would certainly recommend carving a little bit of that out for a grant match. And shower stations is one suggestion. I mean, I listed, new docks or a dock renovation. That's referenced in the master plan as like a bigger dock on a part of the lake. But, we can go whatever direction we want to go with this. So,
I'm not opposed. Kansas Wildlife and Parks paid $210,000. Is that right?
yeah, I'm referencing 200,000 because we had to reimburse 10,000 directly back. So,
I'm not opposed to carving out no more than 50,000 for potential grant matches only. And if we don't use those for grant matches in the next few years because it's not available, then we can throw that into further maintenance at the lake. I mean, what do you guys think?
I'd agree. However, I'd like to know, do we have said location if such monies and grants became available to set some type of location like that, or set some type of building like that? Is there a specific area you're looking at the lake?
I'm thinking like somewhere on the camp host spot, because
Right off the corner there?
right off the corner there, kind of just across the street there from the little
From that first dock.
manufactured place. That's kind of my initial idea, just because we've got a little extra space on that lot. It's got a drive. That's my initial thought. Obviously, if we have to pivot to a different location, we can. But if you go any further than that on trying to get water or sewer anywhere, I mean, that's when your project cost launches up. So actually, the boring would be the most expensive of getting the water there, and then the secondary thing would be what we want to do with sewer. So we've got to explore that. We've got to figure it out, and to actually apply for some of these grants, we'll probably have to consider like some sort of a design plan. So we might have to engage with, an architect or an engineer to kind of put a pretty simple design together of what we want to do.
That's a low area as well, that's what I'd be concerned with it.
Yeah, it would have to be flood proof, which I think probably a lot of those. I think they're used to building those things that way. So there's ways to do it. Of course, that probably increases the price a little bit, but I think knowing that we're going to have to designate a little bit of money if we want to go out and try to find a grant for this. So obviously we'll follow up more with the commission on that, but just wanted to see kind of our general direction, because I think it's a good time to do it, because otherwise it's one of those things that might not ever be done, and I think we're pretty close to doing something unique like that would be a big difference maker out at the lake. So,
Commissioner Naylor, your opinion?
We need a shower out there for our campers, and that will bring more people out who can maybe stay longer than just the weekend.
Are you comfortable with designating and earmarking a certain amount for grant matches?
I don't have a specific amount.
Does that kind of answer or at least give some general direction at the moment?
that gives us an idea, just knowing that there's some money there, and obviously if we try to engage a design firm on this, we'd be bringing that individually back to the commission. But just knowing that we can earmark some of that money for that, and if we don't get it done in 3 years, sure, then move it to the next thing. But I think this is something you could start engaging on right away and try to get some ideas in this next upcoming grant cycle for the next year. So.
Question?
Yeah.
So it sounds like with this conversation, showers pretty high on the list, but the thing that I've always heard about the lake is the lack of utilities of the lake. And we talked about the pedestals, we talked about the camping sites. One thing I've heard often is water at said campsites. And, you just mentioned it that, costs go up, but, long-term plan should be to be able to put some type of potable water at the campsites. And maybe that's what you're trying to do with the fill station. but I don't camp. Deb's,
If the commission doesn't
I don't-
object,
I don't
I will invite Ms. Urbanic up.
Thank you.
Please.
Sorry,
I know, you were over there squirming and,
As I was. So, I happened to be on the commission when we did the lake, review. We spent a lot of money on that and a lot of time on it. A lot of community members came and voiced their opinions. And pretty much everything that's on here is addressed in that to include a design for the campsites. So, I would hate to see us spend, another however much to have a new design drawn up when we already have one there. As long as we paid the money for the darn plan, we paid a lot of money for that plan. I think we should utilize what's in there. So, thanks.
you're welcome. Thank you.
have we seen said plan?
It's been a while since I've seen it.
Okay, well, I haven't
You
seen it
might,
at all.
I appreciate you thinking bigger picture, Commissioner Stats. I'd say the two big issues on getting water and or sewer to the fill station is, first, the nature of sewer is a major issue. There's a lot of campsites with water and electric. We're trying to, address that a little bit with the fill station, so at least folks can show up with an empty camper and not have to come into town to fill up. So that's what we're trying to address there. But getting sewer there individually is costly, and then kind of where do you go with that sewer is the second part of that issue. As far as water, I would be weary of how much water we were using from the water line, because it's the Hope Woodbine water line, and we said that we would tap into it as a city because we can always shut the fill station down if we need to. But we've had some homes that have hooked up to that, and we need to have some more research done on how big that line is and how much till we're meeting our obligations. So we'd have to be weary of how much we're using there until longer term if we ever had potable water piped back out to the lake. So because the Hope line is just not big enough to support many more houses or much more. I don't think campers would affect that a lot, but just something to think about nonetheless. So there was a bid at one point, I think, to tap into that Hope line and even go, I guess like further south, kind of down that road. And I think even part of that at the time was upwards of $50,000, and that was kind of even before. I think this was 5 or 6 years ago. That was even before getting it to the rest of the campsite. So we can take one bite at a time, but I think finding a path to get there, certainly long term, I think that's the goal. So
can you pull a copy and send that master plan to all 5 commissioners, please?
yeah, so I included the link. It's on our website. It's too big of a file to send in an email.
Okay.
It's like 50 megabytes or something, but if you go on the website and type in Lake Master Plan, or if you check I believe from the last commission meeting, I sent the Lake Master Plan. So it's there. You can go on and review it, and I'll take note of what Deb said on those designs for the campsites. So I don't think we weren't planning on engaging an engineer or architect to draw up the campsites. It was probably going to be a little more crude than that, but if we've already got the designs, we'll take a look at those in the upcoming discussion and kind of see where we're at. The only other matter of business I had was we'd had a discussion, I think, last year, and Dennis Fashholtz is still working on the design phase for the Lake Disc Golf Course. He had negotiated with a nearby buyer to add a piece of land next to our original location to expand the course to 18 holes. We had a discussion of kind of buy-in from the city on that and figuring out, I think eventually he would like the city to take ownership of that, and after it's developed into a course, and working on a partnership there. So the main hang-up I've had on drafting that lease purchase agreement that we kind of wanted to draft was, well, how are we going to pay for this? So, I'm not recommending that we, that we buy the land outright. I'm still going to recommend that if we choose to do that, we would enter into a longer term, 15 or 20-year lease purchase agreement. But I guess the question is, would we want to put any money down on this, or simply try to earmark this in a way where we know we can pay the, $5,000 or $10,000 a year back, to where in 15 or 20 years down the road we'll outright own the entire disc golf course. And we've talked about this in the past, but I think Dennis's vision is just that the course lives on. And, I know it's going to be in a family trust, but I think ultimately, if the city has some investment in it. So we can go any direction with that we want to go, but I know that's kind of what we talked about a year or so ago, of trying to figure out some sort of a lease purchase arrangement that doesn't overly burden us, but that gets us thinking about the future. So if we wanted to earmark a little bit of money from this to kind of use as a down payment, so to speak, before we enter into this lease agreement, we can certainly consider doing that, or just saying we want to earmark, some of this money each year for that purpose. But,
Big question, because we have a lot of plans that we want to do at the lakes and at the lake and the reservoir. But a second disc golf course will bring in additional opportunities for them to have their tournaments. I have no problem with the city assisting with maintenance of their course once they have it done. I'd be curious to know what Dennis is thinking as far as a price, really. I'm not prepared, I'm not, to say, let's earmark an X amount.
If you remember from the discussion, I think it was just in the neighborhood. I don't think he was looking to, make it a money-making endeavor for himself. Obviously not, and I'm not sure. I know we discussed the price he paid, and I think ultimately with fees and everything, it was $70,000 or $80,000 for this piece of land. So I think just long-term recouping, some of those costs, and we are going to maintain it. It is, mostly going to be ours, or the city's going to have to be the lead on that. And just thinking long-term, what is a way that we both, because we could just sign a 20-year or 30-year MOU agreement on that, and then at the end of that time period, he owns half and the city owns half. Well, if you want to keep it together, what do you do? So I think the logic we were thinking at the time was, if we make this a lease purchase agreement, we can, pay a yearly amount that we might pay in upkeep costs or whatever anyways, but, we'll own it at the end of the term, and it'll live kind of beyond, all of us, whether we're still here or not, or the city commission's still here or not. There will be buy-in for the next 20 years, and at the end of it, we won't have nothing, because we'll at least own the land and have the disc golf course. So that's the logic. We can certainly bring Dennis back to engage him again about that matter, because it's been a long time since we talked about it. So, but that's kind of where Brad started the initial process of putting that together, but it's been a while since we talked about it. So
I would greatly appreciate additional information.
Yeah, we'll probably get Dennis back first of next year to kind of follow up on that and talk about that again, because we've probably got some new commissioners even since the last time we talked about it. So I can't remember when that discussion actually was. So we'll talk to Dennis and follow up. But beyond that, if there's any other wanted to say, if there's any other projects we've thought of at the lake, we can bring them up, and I can start to explore those as well. So if you don't have anything now, you could send it to me via email.
Quick comment on that.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to see, and maybe this is irrelevant, and maybe we should look into it, but our dumping solutions for the campers are to drive them through town to the
Right.
South Park. It'd be really convenient to have something closer to the west side, or perhaps even on the very west side of town. I don't even know if that's doable, if there's anything out there that would accommodate that. But
So as part of the shower station, I think we would think about, if we figure out sewer for that, we could maybe figure out sewer for the
I was
For
thinking of
dumping the
something
campers.
like West Walnut.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's sewer lines out that would accommodate a dumping station anywhere out there, or if there's any land available to do that. And I don't know if it's ever been looked into, but one thing I've heard too is people grumbling, I gotta take it all the way down to South Broadway to,
Right.
that's all I have. Thank you.
I wonder if any consideration could be if somebody went to talk to John's Auto,
Are they
if
on
he's
s-
got enough room.
I don't know if it'd tie up a private business. I mean, sometimes he's quite busy, so.
Yeah, but he does have that property right across the street as well. So, that is a thought process.
I'm just saying maybe the city crew may have other ideas since they're in charge of
Yeah.
water, sewer.
Without objection, Larry?
As a hopefully future commissioner, I hope that we go out and look at the design, and if it calls for water lines, we get them in before we design the parking lot, so we don't have to tear it up like we do our streets. So I'm hoping we're envisioning what we're going to have as a finished product, and have those water lines laid before we start building all of these camp spots. That's my comment.
Thank you. We've got 9 minutes before 7. Do you have anything else on regarding the lakes, or any other questions, or need opinions regarding that?
No, if you want, I can run through my city manager comments really quick, and then I'll go ahead and kick off the grant, and then we can follow up with commissioner comments at the end of the public hearing if we want.
It's fine, go ahead.
Okay. Staff will be in preparation for Fall Fest this Saturday. I hope to see everyone out there. Worked on kind of the driveway or roadway around the fill station this week, trying to get everything there wrapped up. Completed the remainder of the lake electrical. We had to order some more wire, but we're working on getting the rest of that wiring in this week and cleaning up some of those electrical issues out at the lake. As a reminder, I've sent this out via email, and we'll post it online, but Thursday, October 30th starting at 2:30 p.m., city operations will be closed a little early for mandatory health insurance renewal meeting, so we'll be meeting at City Hall for most of that time for the remainder of the day to try to engage our staff about health insurance renewals. So,
Can you send me a reminder of that?
yeah, it's just going to be a staff meeting, but I will.
I would like to attend if there's no objection from the commission.
Okay. Lease agreement is in effect for the Hilltop Auditorium. Prairie Church will be leasing that space for 1 year. I believe they're trying to get their congregation going, so it'll be nice now that we know the auditorium is good for use to get some use out of that for the next year. So they'll be doing a little on and off work throughout the remainder of the year, and we'll probably be taking off in January. So final reminder is the website redesign will be launching tomorrow. Could have a little bit of downtime, but should be up and going pretty fast. So if you have any issues with bill pay or anything else, encourage citizens to call City Hall. So with that, that's really all I had.
Any other questions for the city manager on his comments? Okay. Can you stretch 6 minutes?
Do we have commissioner comments? Brief?
We can do those right after the meeting.
Okay. So basically what we're doing here is following up from the CDBG emergency grant. So to explain a little bit, we engaged Kansas Commerce when we realized that our aeration blowers at the wastewater treatment facility went out. Basically what the aeration blowers do is keep the water going, keep the water moving, keep air in the water to encourage the growth of microorganisms to help treat the wastewater at our facility. So basically, the blowers have been rebuilt a few times, and they were on the fritz, and we had to set up a temporary solution that included renting generators, air compressor generators to keep things going. So it was a really difficult process, and we were able to look around and see what funding was out there in partnership with our engineers. We identified the CDBG emergency grant funding. During that process, they were able to cover the cost of it if it was something that was going to be a long-term solution. We're going to be able to use these aeration blowers with our Phase 2 sewer renovation project. So basically, they're already installed, and in fact, they may already be in the location we're going to keep them in permanently. They're the correct brand that will work with our new equipment for when we do the renovation, hopefully next year. And so we were able to get that project done. The CDBG grant was, I think, just a touch over $94,000. So in that, we were reimbursed for the grant administration, which Flint Hills Regional Council has been helping us manage. So we met with Kansas Commerce and CDBG reps about a month ago for the closeout period. We did a few administrative cleanup items for various things related to that, including ensuring we had a fair housing policy and kind of the standard CDBG needs or requirements that they have. So pretty much the only thing they asked us to do is explain why we went with the sole source procurement rather than going out to bid on different sets of aeration blowers. We kind of explained that from the beginning, but basically the Horizon brand that we used was the only model that was going to be able to work with our upcoming equipment for the Phase 2 renovation. So we submitted that. CDBG sent over approval that we were good to go on that matter and said we could go ahead and conduct the closeout public hearing. If you'll remember, back in June, we had the kickoff public hearing, and today all we're doing is opening up, giving the public a chance to comment on any matter related to the CDBG emergency application grant funding. So here at 7 o'clock, we will open up the public hearing, or in fact, we could go ahead and open up the public hearing now and keep it open until after 7 o'clock, at least.
I can't open that until 7 o'clock.
Whatever you want to do, but so that's all I had. So all I was obligated to do was kind of give you an update on the closeout of the project. So we're good to go. The public hearing notice was published in the paper, and so as far as I know, we've done everything to settle up on the grant, and it is a good opportunity, but reminds us why we should consider preventative maintenance in the future. So,
Megan, is there a sign-up sheet that's required for this public hearing?
You signed it.
Has everybody else in attendance also signed?
I think it was just the commission that we needed, right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it was.
we're not obligated to turn in the minutes or anything. We're just, as long as we publish notice of it and held the hearing, all we got to do is turn in the affidavit of publication to CDBG, and that's really the only follow-up. So I'm happy to take any brief questions on the matter before we conduct our hearing.
You've got roughly 60 seconds. So, anybody got the Jeopardy music to play? So. Meeting's at 7 o'clock. At this time, I will open the closeout public hearing for finalization of the CDBG emergency grant. Do we have any public comments? Does staff have any additional reports to make? How much was the total of that grant? It was $93,554? According to the letter, we spent $94,413 in CDBG funds. We were an overspend to date of $1,110.64. So, but the funds were expended within a 3-day rule. The letter that we received from the Department of Commerce concludes that we are in good standing still and complies with all state and federal program requirements.
Yeah, so I will note there was a slight overage to the project, and the process for going back and amending and asking for more is so restrictive and difficult that we opted to just cover those costs internally ourselves. So we didn't want to overstay our welcome, and we wanted to make sure we were following the process correctly. So there was a couple valves, and I believe it covered the cost of most of the valves, what we originally applied for in the application. I think it was a couple parts related to those valves that caused the overage. So it was a small overage, but just wanted to let you know about that. So.
Seeing no comments requested from the public at this time, 7:01, I will close the public hearing for the finalization of the CDBG emergency grant. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Naylor?
Last week I went to the League of Municipalities annual conference, kept up with some of the legal things that are coming up and how the budgeting may change with the shutdown, and met with a whole bunch of vendors. Did have one thing we might be interested in, which would be apartment buildings instead of just individual houses that we might look into. So that was the one thing I took away, was maybe we need to get some like 2 or 3 bedroom apartments instead of whole houses. And then everyone please come out and enjoy the fall festival. A lot of people in the community got together to have this activity every year, and they really are appreciated. And that's all I have.
Mr. Stats?
All I have is I won't be at the next commission meeting.
Okay, I spoke with Mr. Motti. The website, like he said, is going live tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes.
I did ask him, there's certain sections that can always be added to the new website, so I did ask him if he would consider a section listing every business in town. So he's, my understanding, hopefully taking that into consideration, we'll be working on that. And then maybe also setting up kind of a community calendar on that website where submissions can be added. So that's what I've done so far this week. Other than that, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Lance?
Commissioner Naylor?
Aye.
Commissioner Stats?
Aye.
Mayor Drewes?
Aye. Thank you.